There, that's better. Maybe now you hear what I'm trying to say. Howdy, peeps. Today we're going to talk about how your focus determines your reality. Join the Journey Radio starts right now.
Welcome to the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps, to another wonderful, splendiferous, joyous episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. I am Lance, your host for Joy in the Journey Radio. Sorry about the lighting. I know it looks funky. I'm trying to get this right in this new space with this new provider. I'm working on it, peeps. I'm working on it. So just work with me here, right? So as I said, I'm Lance Joy for the Journey Radio. This is episode number 370. Focus makes reality. If you're viewing the program live, please join the chat. Tell us where you're from. If you're viewing the program later, leave a comment down below. Let us know where you're from, because that will help with the algorithms. Today, we're going to revisit a theme that is so fundamental. I want to make sure we all understand it. That's why we're going back over it. So I want to introduce the topic to you in the way that it was introduced to me by watching Star Wars Episode 1. Now, calm down. There's no Jar Jar Binks involved here, right? I don't know anyone that loves Jar Jar Binks, really. I mean, maybe like some, little 3-year-old kid that doesn't really know how to assess things yet because they're only 3 years old. All the adults I talk to were like, man, that Jar Jar Binks is a moron. He's an idiot. And of course, I understand why he's there in the Star Wars universe. You have to have some useful idiot in episode 3 to introduce the radical legislation that Palpatine uses to become emperor, to transform the Republic into a empire. That's how liberty dies. So, you got to have that Jar Jar Binks character there. And so that's why he appears there in episode 1. But, looking out my window. Yeah, cool. Okay, so no Jar Jar Binks involved. Okay, it's just Qui-Gon and a very young Anakin Skywalker. Okay, so let's see if I can cue this up. Here we go. Pay attention. Here we go.
Qui-Gon, sir, I don't want to be a problem.
You won't be, Annie. I'm not allowed to train you, so I want you to watch me and be mindful. Always remember, your focus determines your reality. Stay close to me, and you'll be safe.
Okay, so that's the scene, and I hope you caught it. I mean, I kind of gave it away when I told you what the program was about today. Your focus determines your reality. And it sounds like some, weird, new age, Jedi voodoo nonsense. But, but I actually started thinking about it. I actually watched the movie, like, I couldn't tell you how many times before this idea finally caught on to me in my head, that your focus determines your reality. But when I actually started to examine it seriously, I began to see that it was actually a principle of truth. Like, this is a description of the way the universe actually works. It's a key principle that we need to understand in order to take more joy in our journey. Okay, and it's not just during our single years. If you look around, you'll see that many Latter-day Saint singles are dissatisfied with their reality and they wish they could change it. Well, my response to that is, if you want to change your reality, change your focus. You want a different reality, you need a different focus, because your focus determines your reality. Today we're going to talk about how that works. Okay, now recognize some aspects of reality are objective and some are subjective. So depending on your perspective, again, I know this could sound crazy new age nonsense, but it's not. It's actually a natural law in the way the universe works. Think about it this way. Every one of us knows people or has known people who are depressed. Now answer this question honestly. What do depressed people think about all the time? Just in case your name is not Ammon and you don't read minds, what do they talk about a lot? Because speech, what we say, actually reflects thinking, the way that we think. It's a mirror, right? So depressed people, in my experience anyway, constantly talk about the negative. They constantly talk about what is not going right for them. They focus on the negative, and so their reality is negative. People who feel alone, okay, typically focus on being alone. So the reality that they have is one of loneliness. People who feel like they don't have any opportunities typically focus on the lack of opportunity in their life. And so the reality is a lack of opportunity. Now, this one's a little bit more tricky because, you know, what constitutes an opportunity? It all depends on how you define opportunity. If you change your definition of opportunity, then you could see that there's opportunity actually all around you. You're just not considering these opportunities as opportunities. Um, but again, with that assumption of what an opportunity is that underlines your thinking, most people who are looking for opportunity and they don't see anything, they're focused on they focus on the lack of opportunity, and so the reality is lack of opportunity. Many of us Latter-day Saint singles, I think, don't realize how many opportunities are out there in the world. Like, we restrict the entire space of what an opportunity is to be in what's immediately around us, what's in our own backyard. And so we start making these, ridiculous conclusions based on faulty logic that, the only thing that matters is what's immediately around us. And, we lead to some conclusions like, well, you know, there's nothing for me. There's no one for me. There's no one to match with me. And we're not considering the broader space that is the world. So, we get focused on what's immediately around us and we think that's what it is. Then that becomes our reality because we're focused on what's immediately around us when the real reality is that there's a whole lot of space out there and lots of people that we don't see, that we haven't met, that we don't know exist, and yet they exist. They're out there. People who feel like their lives are empty typically focused on what they don't have. So their reality is empty, right? If you think to yourself about the aspects of your reality that you don't like, then think about where you focus your thinking. I'm telling you, they are connected. I'm also telling you, you have a choice where you place your focus. And that means you choose your reality. Now, that's a pretty, if you're hearing this for the first time, that could be like, whoa, overwhelming. Because if you're choosing your reality, that means you're responsible for your reality. And people who are not owning their life, meaning they don't accept responsibility for what they have in their life, that's pretty daunting. And some people are just going to reject it outright because they're not prepared to accept that responsibility that they actually choose the reality they're living in. And I can understand that. I just speaking for myself and my own personal experience. There were many years of my life that I spent with a victim mentality because my focus was on the agency that other people had and how it didn't really matter what I chose because the other person was always going to choose against me, and therefore, what's the point? You know, um, And so I kept myself in this victim mentality by choice. I didn't really realize it, that I was doing it. Um, but again, your focus determines your reality. So if you focus on what you can't have or can't do, then, your life is, the reality you're living in is, yeah, pretty pathetic and depressing. And so, I still remember the moment when it dawned on me that I was choosing my reality. Uh, I just, uh, I was on the road. I just left Boise, Idaho. I was on I-84 eastbound, and I was maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 miles out of town. Um, and I was thinking just about, my life and how things weren't working out, and, you know, these ideas that I'm talking about to you now that I was thinking about, and it dawned on me. I choose. I have agency. And if I'm choosing my, if my focus determines my reality and I'm choosing my focus, then I choose my reality in the focus that I'm choosing. And so if I don't like the way things are now, well, I can change that. I can change that. And it was this huge, um, it was this huge dawning realization that came to me. And if I didn't have the maturity that I had at that moment to step up to the plate and say, okay, I know this feels bad, but I'm going to take the responsibility here and own my life and start to learn how to make changes so that my life gets better. If I didn't have the maturity, if I wasn't really prepared to do that, I would have just rejected it outright, and then nothing would have changed for me. But that's not what happened. I actually stepped up and said, okay, I'm gonna be mature. I'm gonna embrace this and make the most of it. And that was the start of a long and arduous journey for me. So, um, I really don't have much more to say about it. 'Cause, I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's a very powerful principle that your focus determines your reality. And when you come to see that, when you come to embrace that, um, then it's like the Savior said, the truth will set you free. And that's what I found. That's what I found on the other side of this, um, uncomfortableness in accepting responsibility for the fact that the reality of my life was not what I wanted it to be. On the other side of that discomfort was freedom, an immense amount of freedom. And with that freedom came power. Power, because once you realize that you have agency, that you choose, you control, there's so much you control. Um, once you realize the power that you have in your agency to change the reality that you live in, then it's very empowering and liberating. And so when I'm talking about changing the reality you lived in, again, I'll harken back to what I said before. There are some objective features to reality, right? So it's not like, you know, suddenly I have this, wonderful person in my life, and we go to the temple and we make this covenant, and we live happily ever after. And that doesn't happen just because, I changed my thinking up here. It's not like instantaneous, right? But here's what it does do, right? The more instantaneous effect is that you start to feel better, right? I mean, the objective reality that I was single and did not have that special someone in my life did not change simply because I said, okay, I'm gonna man up, and I'm going to uh, take responsibility for what happens in my life. I'm going to own my life. Okay. But that decision, led to freedom, led to empowerment, right? And that began to change the energy that I was broadcasting to other people, right? So if you think about like the influence that you have through that energy that you're broadcasting to other people, you know, that actually does have the ability to sway people who, maybe they, without that influence, they would decide against you. But with that influence, now you kind of tip the scale the other way and they start deciding in your favor. When you start to, control that focus that you have on what you can do, what lies within your power, what lies within your ability, focus on what you can accomplish, focus on what you can change, focus on what you do have, then you start embracing a reality filled with opportunity, optimism, confidence, and that's going to broadcast a different energy out to people so that you know wonderful event that all of us are looking for to happen in our lives, it doesn't happen instantaneously, but through the accumulation of small gains day in and day out, it can lead to that happening eventually. Your focus determines your reality. So if you don't like your focus, I would say go back and take a look at your uh, back up. If you don't like your reality, reverse that. If you don't like your reality, go back and take a look at your focus, because that's really that's really where your power is. And I've often said that agency is the second most underappreciated gift. After the atonement, it's been said that the atonement is the most underappreciated gift of God to his children. I think right behind it, very close second, is the gift of agency. I don't think we appreciate enough the power of agency in our own lives. And I think once we start to own our life, take responsibility for everything in our life, and embrace that, then it becomes easier to embrace more effective ways of thinking. One of which is your focus determines your reality. So if you don't like your reality, go and adjust your focus. So there it is, peeps. Hope that helps you. Don't have anybody here in the chat. So, if you join the live stream, feel free to, be in the chat, and that's why I have it set up, right? So you can participate and we can have sort of a discussion during the broadcast. But hey, nobody's in the chat right now, so we'll just kind of leave that off. If you do have a comment though, or a question, something you'd like to see, please, leave that comment down below. If there's a topic or a question you want to see addressed, we're happy to help. Please leave a comment down below. If there's something that, we can do to help you to overcome the challenges of LDS singles life, yep, you got it. Leave a comment down below. Could also go to the contact page on our website, jointhejourneyradio.com. /contact. That's the contact page, and use the form there to send us a message. That's another way you could reach out to us. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share our content that you find helpful, so that the algorithms can then get this neat, helpful information out to other LDS singles who need to hear it. And so that's what I got for you today for this episode of Join the Journey Radio. Until next time, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy and journey on.